if we talk about a living organization as bottom up and learning about customer and reacting to it in agile, in responding to situation, and we talk about heavy top down and sort of very meritocratic organization as sort of non-living ones, and if I'm more aligned with someone which is non-living in that definition, like how do you see that journey for a non-living to turn into living? Like what are some of the steps a non-living organization can take to start living in your definition?
First of all, if there are individuals, let's say senior individuals that you're working with, that you need to persuade, let's say, share, not say media, but share publications and respected organizations who are saying this. Larry Fink of BlackRock, for example, the World Economic Forum's leaders, it's a boardroom agenda item. If you truly are in a boardroom, you truly are in an executive discussion, the senior most people are now accountable for, and they're asking about and want to learn more about sustainability, about these items. Again, it's not a feel good, it's not a check the box, they're being, and if you are doing business in Northern Europe, or actually any part of Western Europe now, these are becoming regulatory requirements. It's kind of like when ISO 9000 or the CE mark or certain trades, whether you like them or not,
right,
they are a requirement to do business. Now, the other aspect of it, again, on a more positive note, is if you're trying to do these things, then it's easier and easier to get people behind you. It's an easier discussion to have. Your employees and you are part of the team. You and your community are part of a team. You and your partners, your ecosystem. And so it becomes less of a zero-sum game. All right, we're working together here. And how can we reduce our total either carbon footprint or waste or some other negative metric across trading partners? How can we work together? And it's off the charts now as far as moving the needle for what consumers value. In a world where a lot of products are pretty good, the retailer you choose or the person you choose to buy your vehicle from, your fashions from, or your food, it's an absolute point of competition now, differentiation. And remember, it isn't just the carbon footprint, it's also where did you get your product? Was it a Conflict Diamond? Was the Providence? Was it a sweatshop somewhere or unfair labor practices? Or was it fair trade? There's a variety of things. And that's driving a revolution in supply chain, because the only way you can tell whether it was or not is if you have product traceability all the way up the line. And not just to your supplier's supplier. And this is where the technologies like blockchain and freight forwarding and these different types of technologies have practical application. So it's one of the reasons why blockchain is so important in the physical supply chain. So the traceability, establishing trust.
Thank you for sharing that. So what are some of the key takeaways that you found or you while writing the Live Enterprise?
One, that the idea resonates. This is a broad statement, but the idea resonates, and the more we peeled it back, the more solid it got. Because again, we practice many of these things ourselves, and so it emboldened us to create more content and to go share the story. As far as the tactical, I think one is this idea of a quantum organization, that you can do many things at once. You can't do things sequentially. You can't decide this, then this, then this. You've got to unleash a lot of ideas. You've got to groom and nurture the best ones. Is it messy? Is it complicated? Yes, but that's the world. It's almost like the Silicon Valley, mindset people like to think about with this culture and cauldron of innovation. You've got to have that, because in a world where things are changing a lot, it guarantees that you'll navigate, because you'll be more you'll have less latency to when something comes up for you to take advantage of it. Like it's a market. Like if someone thinks North America is their big market, well, maybe it was yesterday. maybe something's changed in certain products. The second thing is perceptive experiences, that customer experience, design thinking, those types of things are still important. There is now a quantitative dimension going from personas and broad segments to a n equal 1. And there's feedback. Like, for example, we have a client with insurance that, let's say you're very much a numbers person. And I'm very much, I don't know, a reference or credibility. So the same information about a quote might be shown to you with all these statistics about why it's good and the money you'll save. And for me, maybe it's about all these references and the number of stars and the ratings and maybe some quotes. Literally, it's the same information because of the psychographic information, not just demographic. It is presented. And this is known why? Because of a knowledge graph, because of telemetry, because of all this data that's out there. And so I think that's another big element. And then these intuitive decisions. It's this duality of, we're automating so much work. Once you can document it, it's rules-based, you can automate it. And at the same time, you have this human element of empathy, of design, of modeling. That's a combination. So it's like an Iron Man suit for a human. You amplify, not replace the human, and a lot more gets done. So those are some of the big things. And the last one I wanted to highlight, because to get change done, we found that a set of frequent small changes is ultimately the powerful large change. We call it micro is the new mega. There are things like atomic habits or tiny habits, nudge theory, that these small changes, if you don't go back over time, they create big changes, because otherwise you just go in circles. And this also ties back to these 3 to 6 weeks or 4 to 6 week cycles of releasing something small and adopting, release and adopt. You do that, and the compounding effect over, let's say, a year is significant. So those are some of the biggest takeaways.
I think one thing that I was reading the book, so one thing that stood out was, responsive value chain made sense, intuitive decision making made sense. What is quantum organization? Like, it's a very creative way to call an organization. So why, explain the thinking behind that?
It's like Schrodinger's cat. You're trying to can something be multiple states at once?
Right.
So we're trying to convey this idea that an organization needs to have many things going on simultaneously and be multiple things at the same time. It's hard to grasp, but guess what? That's the ugliness of the world we're in, or that's a complexity. And so the ability to have multiple things going on and still function, and picking the best of them. And the other is that by having many things going on and not having a clear command and control, but allowing it to evolve, so it's quantum and agile at the same time. And yes, it's a nice play on words. We just found, though, that the idea of quantum, and the funny thing is, if you look at one of the 30-minute coffee or fireside chats, WEF, the Davos agenda a few weeks ago, they had virtually, Sundar Pichai, the Google or Alphabet CEO, actually said nature is a quantum organization. And he went this whole idea of the same thing. So it's kind of interesting to see that validated independently.